Inside of today's video, we've got some sneak peeks to take a look at. We've got nearly 100 balance changes with all the different star powers and gadgets. We've also got some nerfs to some of the best brawlers in the game like Fang. And then we've got 5 brand new hypercharges to take a look at. So a lot to dive into. Starting off with the Band-Aid star power with Shelly. So this star power was actually supposed to be around 2,600 extra healing, but instead 2,200 is what it's changed to. So it's about a 400 difference, so if anything, it's actually a little nerf. Before we get into today's video, we want to give a huge shout out to Battle Crush for sponsoring today's video. Battle Crush is a new PvP brawler action game which will be available on Nintendo Switch, Steam, and Google Play. In Battle Crush, the goal of the game is to fight among up to 30 players from around the world to be the last one standing. You've got to do this whilst the ground crumbles everywhere you go, helping you to create a lot of action-packed gameplay as enemies approach from all angles. Another good thing to know is that the games only take 8 minutes, making it easy to always fit some games in. Also, during the battle, you'll find some treasure chests scattered around the field. These items will help you survive, and the gear will help make your Elixir stronger. The controls can be quite simple, however, the action skills are what I'm most excited for, especially because I'm a hardcore gamer. You can level up the skill cap by having up to 6 action skills, including combos, dashes, and ultimate abilities. Battle Crush also has multiple game modes to enjoy, like Battle Royale, 30 players enter and 1 remains. You have Brawl, where you can choose 3 Elixirs to battle, and also my personal favorite, Build Up, where you can battle your enemies 1 versus 1. The beta starts on October 23rd. You can sign up on Steam and also the Google Play Store. Also, make sure to sign up using the link in the description below, and if you use my coupon, you'll get 1,000 free crystals. So once again, a big thank you for Battle Crush for sponsoring today's video. So next we have a change to needed star power. Bear with me. So before it was 800 healing, now it is 1,040. So it's about the same that it should be. It should be around 1,066. So if anything, it's kind of stayed the same. So next we have Ball's T-Bone Injector. This is exactly stayed the same from 1,500 to 2,000. I think this is one of the only ones that is completely changed perfect. So just before we get into the next one, the reason why I'm kind of comparing all of these different stats was because of course, the power level creep added like an extra 33% onto every brawler, so every star power and gadget should at least by minimum be increased by 33%. So I'll be going through all the differences, saying whether they've got an indirect nerf or a buff, but technically most of these brawlers would have received a buff from their previous state. But with Brock, he used to deal 500 damage with his rocket laces, now it's 580, but this should have been around 667, so if anything, it's a small indirect nerf. So next up we have 2 with El Primo, starting off with his Asteroid Belt gadget. It used to deal 2,000 damage, now it's 2,880. It should have been around 2,666, so it's actually a little bit of a buff to him. And also his El Fuego star power has been changed. Used to deal 1,200, now up to 1,692, so around a 100 damage increase on what it should have been. So you know, El Primo has got a small indirect buff. So the next 3 changes are with Barley, starting off with his Herbal Tonic gadget. It used to heal 500, now it's 720, so it should have been about 666, so it's actually a good increase. So if anything, the gadget has got better. The first one, medical use with his star power, it used to heal 400, now it's 480, so this hasn't been buffed enough. It should be around 533, but I don't think it's the biggest of differences. But again, his extra nauseous star power hasn't been buffed whatsoever. It used to add on an extra 200 damage, and it's still 200. It should be around 267. So if anything, Barley's kit has been nerfed. The changes I'm most looking forward to are with Poco, because his kit definitely suffered without the buffs. Starting off with Tuning Fork then. So it now heals 592. It used to heal 500. But if anything, it should have been around 667, so it's actually received a small indirect nerf. Not enough healing, needs to be tuned up a little bit. The Capo, it used to heal 700, but now it heals 962, so this is actually a bigger buff than it needed. It should have been around 933 extra healing, so the Capo is actually a little bit better than before. And then Screeching Solo, it now deals 1,520 damage. It used to deal 1,000, but with that extra buff which you needed, it should have been around 1,300 233. So Screeching Swallow is actually a little bit better. It deals an extra 200 damage than it should do. The Rosa has received 3 changes, starting with her Unfriendly Bushes gadget. It used to deal 100 damage, now it's 276. So it's actually a big buff to the damage, but I don't think it's really going to do too much because the numbers are really small anyway. It should have been about 133 damage, so yeah, it's about double the damage that it should have. The next one is with the Plant Life Star Power. So it used to heal 200 per second, now it's 324, so it's actually quite a big buff to the amount of healing. Again, it shouldn't really do too much, but again, it could add up over time because it should have healed 267, so an extra 60 healing per second is actually pretty good. And then Thorny Gloves has actually indirectly been nerfed because it used to deal an extra 220 damage, now it's 276, and it should have been buffed to 293, so only like a 20 damage difference, but still, it's a little bit of a nerf, so maybe we might see a change to the Plant Life Star Power. So next up, we have Jessie Star Power Energized. So this used to heal 896, now it heals 1060, so this is a big indirect nerf because it should actually heal 1195 per attack. So if anything, Energized has got worse. So next up, we have Dinah. He's received 2 changes. The first one with his Fidget Spinner, it now deals 1600 damage instead of 2000. So if anything, it's been heavily nerfed because it should be dealing around 2666, so like a 1000 damage nerf to Fidget Spinner, even though it's like the worst gadget in the game anyways. I don't really know about that one, but with Demolition, it's actually received a small indirect buff because before it used to add 1000 damage, now it adds 1600, so an extra 300 damage than what it was supposed to actually be. Like, it should have been 1300. The next up, we have Tick's gadget Last Hurrah. So it's received a small indirect nerf. So before, it used to deal 1000 damage, now it's 1280, so of course it should be dealing around 1330, but I don't think it really makes a big difference. So next up, we have Rico. He's received a few changes, starting with his multiple launcher. Right now in the dev build, it deals 5000 damage, which of course shouldn't be in the real build. It used to deal 800 damage, so it should really be about 1100 for it to be actually buffed fairly. We have Bouncy Castle, which used to heal 200, now it heals 256, but it's actually been indirectly nerfed a little bit. It should be around 267, so unfortunately, Bouncy Castle not getting as much value as before, but this is a big one. I think this is one that everyone's going to sleep on. It is super bouncy. It used to deal an extra 124 damage. Now it deals an extra 256, so that is literally doubled. It should be around an extra 165 damage. So yeah, literally an extra 100 damage from what it's supposed to be. I think this will quickly add up, and quickly Rico might become a really strong brawler. So next, we have Daryl's gadget Recalling Rotator. So it used to deal 400 damage, now 600. I don't think it's going to make the biggest of differences. I mean, it should have been around 533, but small numbers, it might add up a bit in Heist if you use the gadget on the Heist save, but other than that, I don't think it makes the biggest of difference. Next up, we have Penny, starting off with Salty Barrel. So before, the barrel used to have 1500 HP, now it has 2240, so that's actually about a 240 HP increase on what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be buffed to about 2000 HP, so Salty Barrel is a little bit better. You know, Penny's been struggling, so she needs a little bit of love. And the next one is with Master Blaster. So this star power deals an additional 1316 damage, but it should be around 1333, but that doesn't really matter, it's about the same. Next changes with Carl's Heat Ejector. It's pretty much exactly the same. Used to deal 500 damage, now 660, so pretty accurate. Next change is with Gus and with his Cookie Popper. So it actually deals pretty much the exact same damage as it should. Used to deal 1400, now 1880, so a pretty good change. So we have Ems and her Friend Zoner gadget. Before, it used to deal 500 damage, now 676, so pretty accurate change. And then with the Hype Star Power, it used to heal 420, now it heals 576, so just a small indirect buff with this one, but it might start to be the better star power again. So next up, we have Stu, starting off with his Speed Zone gadget. This actually didn't receive a HP buff, so it's still 1000 HP. It should be around 1300 just to keep up with everything else. Next, we have Breakthrough. So this received a small indirect nerf because it used to deal 200 damage, now it's just 216. It should be around 267, but small numbers, it shouldn't really make the biggest list of deals, but the big one is with Gasser Heal. So Gasser Heal used to heal 400 every single time you dashed. Now it's 580, so that's actually a 50 HP increase on what it should have been. So it should have been around 533. So yeah, Gasser Heal has actually got strong. Next up we have Piper, starting off with her auto aimer gadget. It deals 170 damage now. It used to deal 100, so you know, it's only a 40 additional damage than what it should be. Really, it's not really going to add up whatsoever. And then with ambush, it's actually been buffed a little bit. It used to deal 800 damage, now it's 1190. So if we're actually adding the 33%, it should have been around 1067, so nearly a 200 damage buff for ambush star power. So next we have some changes with Pam, and these ones are very big in my opinion. Starting off with pulse modulator, it used to heal 1200, now it's 1920, so this is actually like a 300 HP buff. It should have been around 1600. I think this gadget could actually be okay in some scenarios. I still think Scrap Sucker will be better overall, but the big one is with Mama's Hook star power. So this used to heal 48 every single time you hit an opponent, now it heals 96, so this is near enough double from what it used to be, which is absolutely huge. I think it actually is double, but it should have been around 64 additional HP, so that's like an additional 30 per bullet. It might not seem like a lot, but trust me, I think this might be the better star power overall now. And then Mama's Squeeze has actually indirectly been nerfed by 100 damage. It should have been around 1067, but it's actually 960, so if anything, I think Mama's Hook might actually be pretty underrated. So next up we have Frank's star power Sponge. So it used to give an additional 1100, now it's 1400, so it should have been an extra like 60 HP, so about 1460. A small indirect nerf, but it doesn't really matter. So next up we have BB's gadget Vitamin Booster. So this used to heal 600 per second, now it's 960, so it's actually 160 extra HP than it should have been. It should have been around 800, now it's 960, so I think this is actually going to make BB a little bit better. Next up we have B's gadget Rattled Hive. So this deals 1200 damage instead of the 1000 that it used to deal, but it should be around 1333, so it's actually a small indirect nerf. Next we have Nanny's star power Autofocus. So this used to deal 1600 extra damage, now it's 2000, but it's a small indirect nerf because it should have been around 2133. It's not really the biggest amount of damage, but still it doesn't give the value that it used to. Next up we have two changes with Edgar, starting off with the hardcore gadget. So this is a big buff to it. It used to give an additional 2000 shield to him, now it's 3300, so that is huge. It should have been around 2600, so that's like an extra 700 HP on top of Edgar. Now I think the other gadget will still be a little bit better, and hard landing as well is pretty much exactly what it should be. It used to have an extra 1000 damage, now 1350. Next we have Griff's gadget Piggy Bank. So the damage that it deals with the Piggy Bank, it's gone from 1000 to 1300, so just a fair change. It doesn't really matter too much. So next up we have Bonnie's gadget Crash Test. So the damage has been doubled with this one, a massive buff. So it used to deal 1000 damage, now it's 2320, so that's like an additional 1000 on what it should have been. So next we have two changes with Mortis, starting off with Combo Spinner. So it used to deal 1500 damage, now it's 1880, so this is a small indirect nerf because it should have been buffed to around 2000, so yeah, Survivor Shovel is definitely going to be better still. And the next one is with Creepy Harvest. So it used to heal 1000 every single time you got a kill, now it's 1520, so this is a small buff to him because it should have been around 1333. So next up we have Tara and her gadget Support from Beyond. So the pets used to have 800 HP, now they have 1080, so it's been represented exactly the same. And same with the damage as well, used to deal 500 damage, her pets, now it's 665. But the interesting thing is that neither the Black Portal gadget or Healing Shade have actually been buffed whatsoever. It's the exact same HP as before, so if anything, her star powers have actually got worse. Next up we have Jean, and he's received 4 changes. So starting off with Lamp Blowout, it used to heal 600 when it hit an opponent, and now it heals 720, so this is a small change because it should have been healing him at around 800, but it shouldn't really affect him too much. And then with Vengeful Spirits, it now deals 1536 damage. It used to deal 1000 damage, so it's actually about 200 extra damage at max range. Again, shouldn't really matter too much because you hardly hit anyone at max range. And then the first one is with Magic Puff. So this has actually received a small indirect buff, which I absolutely love. Magic Puffs has gone from 400 HP to 576 extra healing every second. So This should have been around 533, so a small increase, definitely do like that. And Spirit Slap's been buffed heavily as well. It used to deal an additional 1000 damage, now it's 1920, so an additional 600 damage. Still, Magic Puffs is going to be by far the better star power. Next up we have Mr. P. He's had a few changes, starting off with Service Bell. So the damage used to be an extra 150, now it's 228, and the HP used to be an extra 1000, now it's 1360, so it's actually a little bit bigger than what it was supposed to be. So Service Bell's got a little bit better, and Port Reinforcements has actually got worse because it hasn't received any additional HP. It's still 1400, and it should be near enough 2000, so Service Bell's still going to be the go-to. So next up we have Sprout's gadget, Garden Mulcher. So it actually heals 1800, it used to heal 1500, and it should have been actually 2000, so it's received a small indirect nerf of 200 HP, which I don't really understand because this gadget wasn't even the go-to. So next we have Byron's gadget, Shot in the Arms. So it used to heal 800, now it heals 1200, so a small increase in what it should have been, around 100 extra HP, so small indirect buff. Next up we have Great Star Power, New Perspective. So it used to heal 1000 every single time we go for a teleporter, now it's 1320, so pretty much exactly the same. There's no buff or nerf. So next we have Willow's gadget, Spellbound. So this used to deal an extra 500 damage, now it's 600, so it actually should have been around 670, but I don't think it really makes a difference. So Spike has had a few changes, starting off with the gadget Popping Pin Cushion. It used to deal 800 extra damage, well 800 damage, now it deals 1120, so it's actually a small buff because it should have been about 100, well about 60 or so less damage from what it is now. Life Plant has received a small buff as well. It used to be 1750, now it's 2400, and with the health it used to heal 1000, now it's 1440, so about an additional 100 in each of the HP and the healing, so it makes Spike a little bit better indirectly. But Fertilize has been nerfed a little bit. It used to heal 1000, now it's 1200, so this should have been at least 1300, so the gadgets have got better, but Fertilize has got weaker. So next we have Crow's star power, Carrying Crow. So this has gone from 152 extra damage to 256. So this is actually a big increase and might actually be the better star power now. It should have been around 203. So that's an extra 50 damage on top of what it should have been. I think the star power could be underrated. So we've got one change with Leon, and it's pretty much exactly how it should be. He used to heal 1000 every single second, now it's 1360, so pretty much the same. Next up we have some changes with Sandy, and I actually think this one could be way stronger than people realize. So Root Sands has gone from 100 extra damage per second to 216. This is double the damage. I'm pretty scared about this one. I think Sandy could potentially be an S-tier brawler with this change. Doesn't seem like a lot, but trust me, I remember when Root Sands used to deal a lot of damage. And then Healing Winds actually has got indirectly nerfed a little bit. It used to heal 300, now it's 380, should have been around 400. And yeah, by the way, Root Sands should have been about 133, so an additional 100 damage is crazy. It has had one small change, so a Dancing Flames gadget, it's actually got even worse. It's gone down to 800 damage, which I don't really understand, and it used to be 1000. It should have been at least 1300 just to keep up with things. So yeah, it's got to pretty much the worst gadget in the game. Meg has received two changes, starting off with her Jolting Volts gadget. So it used to heal 300, now it deals 518, so that's actually like a 100 HP buff to the gadget, which is actually pretty good. I'd say that's a substantial buff to Jolting Volts. And then Heavy Metal has gone from 1500 damage to 2400, so that's an extra 400 damage on top of things. So Meg should be a little bit better. So next up we have Ruffs, and his kit should be heavily affected by these changes. So starting off with Sandbags, so they used to have 1500 HP, now it's 1960, so it should be around 2000. It's pretty much the same. And Air Support, the additional damage has actually gone up a little bit, so used to deal 700 damage per hit, never used to hit anyone, but it actually now is 1120, so an additional 200 extra damage. But again, I don't think that's really going to impact too much. And the next one with Air Superiority, the Super used to deal 3000 damage when used to have this star power, and now it's 3344, so this actually isn't enough to what it's supposed to be. So it should be around 4,000. So if anything, it's actually got nerfed. And then field promotion hasn't been changed whatsoever. So I think that Ruff's kit overall has actually been negatively affected. Next up, we have Belle's gadget Nest Egg. So it used to deal 500 damage. Now it's 624. Should have an extra 40 damage, but I don't think the damage is why I use this gadget anyway. Next up, we have Ash's gadget Chill Pill. So this used to heal 2,500. Now it's 3,120. So this is a small indirect nerf because it should be around 3,300. So next up, we have Lola, and she's received 2 indirect buffs. So the first one is going to be with Stunt Double. It now heals 1,520, so an extra 200 on what it should be. And then the next one is with Sealed with Kiss. So this used to heal 150. Now it's 312, so this is an additional 100 healing. I think this star power could definitely be the better one. Next one is with Fang. Cornfu has actually received a nerf instead of a buff, which is pretty insane. It used to deal 750 damage, now it's 680. Should have been around 1,000, so a big nerf to that. And then Divine Souls is exactly how it should be. Used to have 500 damage reduction, now it's 668. So next up, we have Eve's kit. So nothing has actually changed about Eve, but I believe there should have been some changes to the healing to Motherly Love, and there should have been some extra HP with Gotta Go, and also Happy Surprise as well, but none of these has changed. Next, we have a buff to Janet's gadget Drop the Base. So this used to deal 100 damage, now it's 188, so this is actually an extra 50 damage on what it was supposed to be. We have a change to Otis's gadget Fat Splatter. So it used to deal 840 damage, now it's 1,100. Should have been about 1,120, so not the biggest change. So next up, we have Buster's gadget Utility Belt. So this used to heal 750, and it's actually been nerfed to 728, and it should have been around 1,000 above. So it's actually a big nerf to this gadget. And lastly, we have a buff to the best gadget in the game in the line. So it used to deal 500 damage, now it's 700. This isn't going to change too much. And just quickly as well, the Cordelia star power hasn't been buffed. Mushroom Kingdom, it should have been changed to around 2,000. So that's going to be it for all the gadgets and star powers now. So now we have the buffs outside of the star powers and gadgets. So I'm actually proud to say I did 3 of these changes actually when I was over in Finland, but they're not the biggest of changes. Starting off with Pet Power. So it's increased in damage, well, increased in power by an extra 5%, so from 20 to 25%. So if you're comparing this with Nita's Bear, for example, used to deal 960 damage with Pet Power, now it's 1,000. So not the biggest of changes, but still Pet Power was just so underwhelming anyways, except for Heist. It's actually pretty usable. The next one is with Sandy's Mythic Gear. So Sandy's Mythic Gear used to have a 10% damage reduction when he was inside of it. Now it's up to 20%. So this actually could be pretty good. Again, one that's suggested because this Mythic Gear was terrible. And the last gear to change is actually with Leon's Mythic Gear. So it's gone from 1 second additional duration to 2 seconds. So now his super will last 8 seconds instead of 6. I think this could be pretty good, especially if you combine it with Smoke Trails. And then the final one is with Shield Gear. This is just going to be buffed what it should have been anyways. It used to have an extra 600 HP. Now it's an additional 900 HP. So it's actually a 100 HP increase because it should have only been 800. So if anything, gears have got a little bit more value in them now. Last buff for this update is going to be with Doug, and it's going to be 2 things to his super. So you've actually increased the range from 20 to 28. I don't know what that means, but a small increase in of course, the super distance. So you can actually hit your super a lot easier. And then the increase in super width is gone from 50 to 200. You'll see the difference straight away. That's a times 4 increase in the width of the super, so you're going to be able to hit your teammates a lot more. I don't think it's going to make Doug that much better, but still, it's going to make your super more appealing to your teammates. Now we're going to be moving on to the nerfs, starting off with the speed gear. So I know for a fact that the pros are the ones that got this one nerfed, especially during LCQ. A lot of them were vouching for this. So the speed gear has gone from a 20% speed boost to 15%. So it's only been nerfed by 5%, but trust me, you can feel it. So I feel like the game's going to be a little bit slower now, but I like it because speed gear was just way too toxic. Next up, we have a nerf to Crow's gadget slowing toxins. So it's been nerfed a lot now. It's now gone from 3 seconds in durations to 2 seconds. So this is a good nerf because this gadget was just way too toxic. I still think it's going to be the better one overall, but at least it's going to be less oppressive. So next we have the biggest nerf by far out of all of them. It has to be with Shelly. So she's received a big nerf to her supercharge from super. So in terms of pure data, it's gone from 112 to 60. I don't know what that means, but you can just tell from the numbers itself. It's gone down by half. So that is huge. So basically now when you super someone from point blank, you used to only need an additional 1 ammo after you supered. Now you need an additional 2 ammos, so you can't just spam your super relentlessly. I think the big problem with Shelly is that she used to have a super all of the time, especially with Hypercharge as well. So I think this is a big nerf, and it could put Shelly pretty far down in the meta. Next up, we have a nerf to Gus. Even though Gus is like a C tier brawler, we've removed the Cookie Popper knockback. So I actually suggested this like a month ago. I don't think it's really needed right now because Gus isn't that good, but the knockback used to really annoy me. So at least now you might be able to actually think about what gadget you need to use. Next up, we have a nerf to Pearl's gadget Overcooked. So before it used to add an additional 60% damage onto the attack, and now it's an additional 40%. So a 20% nerf to the gadget. This gadget was pretty good, so I'm glad it got nerfed. Next up, we have a nerf to Squeak's gadget Residue. So before it used to last in duration of 8 seconds, now it is 6 seconds, so a 2-second duration nerf, especially since the gadget gear came out. Residues just became way too toxic again, so I like it. It's definitely a good nerf. So we have a nerf to one of the best brawlers in the game with Fang. His attack damage has only been nerfed slightly, so I don't think it's going to change too much, from 2,800 to 2,720 at max level. So again, I don't think it's going to do too much, but at least it might turn him down a little bit. And lastly, for all the nerfs, then we have a nerf to Buster. So again, another really strong brawler. His attack damage has been nerfed from 2,880 to 2,800. So the smallest of nerfs, but at least it's toning him down a little bit. So now we're going to be moving on to the Hypercharges. So starting off with Rosa's Hypercharge Grasping Roots. So this one was already leaked from Frank himself in the podcast, but Rosa slows down all nearby enemies while her super is active. So already Rosa is 1,000,000% an S tier brawler. She's going to break the game with his Hypercharge. It looks absolutely insane. You've also got the slow from her gadget as well. Just everyone's going to get slowed, and Rosa's just going to run all over everyone. I'm terrified of this Hypercharge. I think it's going to be insanely broken. Next up, we have Maisie's Hypercharge called Aftermath. So with Maisie's super, she also shoots out her basic attack projectiles in like a spike pattern. So actually like 6 shots come out of her, which is actually insane in terms of damage. So if you want to talk about the damage that it deals, it's 17,840 damage, because you've got the super damage and then the 6 projectiles as well. So I think this one's going to be a little bit broken, because you can pretty much one-shot any tank that comes near you. I don't know, we'll have to see how it plays out, but I think this has potential to be really strong, because Maisie gets her super pretty quick anyways, so she's going to be able to get her Hypercharge a lot faster. It's going to be very strong. So next up, we have Lou's Hypercharge called Slushy Storm. So whenever Lou activates his Hypercharge and his super, all opponents will instantly be frozen within that super. So I think this is going to be pretty good because of the additional attack boosts, but overall I don't think it's actually that strong. Next up, we have Jessie's Hypercharge called Scrappy 2.0. So Jessie's turret gains an additional 50% HP and deals an additional 20% damage. So by stats, it actually went from 6,600 HP to nearly 10,000 HP, which is insane. And then with the damage as well, it does 520 damage normally, and then it goes to an additional 624 damage in Hypercharge motion. But if you add on top of that the pet power gear as well, you can deal near enough 780 damage with Scrappy every second. And you combine this with her gadget as well, I feel like it's going to be very strong in Heist. I'm kind of scared of this one. Moving on to the final Hypercharge, which I think is the best one by far out of all of them. It is Colette's Hypercharge called Teen Spirit. So a spirit follows Colette when she dashes, dealing damage to the opponents on the way. So this will essentially double the damage of the super of Colette, and it will actually double the super charge rate as well. So if you hit an opponent, you'll instantly recharge your super back. So you could just spam your super out, especially against tanks, but you'll just delete tanks anyway, because you'll be dealing like 20k damage with one super. So that's about 25% of the high save gone. But it's just crazy to me. I feel like this could be very broken in Heist. I'm kind of scared of this one because she'll just shut down tanks so easily. So that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know what you think of all the changes. I'm exhausted. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.